Treasure, ships, and fighting. The story of Blackbeard. Pirates of the Caribbean's Captain Jack Sparrow is likely the most famous pirate from the silver screen. However, there's one very real pirate from the history books that has an equally interesting tale to tell. This story begins in Bristol, England, in 1702. A man named Edward Teach has just set sail from Bristol's port aboard a Royal Navy ship. Queen Anne's War has begun, and Teach is desperate for money. During the war, Teach experiences success as a sailor, but when the fighting finishes, he's out of work. Teach settles in the Bahamas, where he meets pirate Benjamin Hornigold in 1716. Hornigold agrees to employ Teach and places him in charge of a captured ship. Hornigold retires a year later, leaving Teach to make his own decisions. One of Teach's first moves is to attack and capture a large French slave ship, La Concorde. Teach renames the ship Queen Anne's Revenge and fits it with around 30 cannons and a crew of 300. It's around this time that he gains the name Blackbeard.
Hi everyone, welcome to English for You. I'm Kat.
And I'm Elsie.
And today we are talking about pirates.
Ooh,
Yarr.
pirates.
Well, actually a very specific pirate. Yeah, we've done articles on pirates in the past. Like
Yes.
I wrote one on Zheng Yisao, who is the most successful pirate, let alone female pirate.
And we've also talked about why they wear a eye patch.
That's right. So we've talked about pirates in the past. I think now we're talking about maybe arguably the most famous real-life pirate ever. So what famous pirates do you know of?
Famous pirates.
Uh-huh.
Captain Hook.
I mean, yeah.
Captain Jack Sparrow.
Cool.
And Davy Jones.
Yes, they're all, well, Davy Jones,
Is he considered a pirate?
he's a legend. Captain Jack Sparrow and Captain Hook are fictional characters. Davy Jones is maybe real, but we're talking about somebody today who was definitely real.
Yes.
Yeah, so the person who probably inspired Captain Hook and Captain Jack Sparrow. So if you want a hint, he's got some hair on his chin and it's dark. Yeah, so that's a hint I'm going to give you at first. But let's start with the article. Pirates of the Caribbean's Captain Jack Sparrow is likely the most famous pirate from the silver screen. So, you talking silver screen, that's basically just saying like in the movies. Yeah, because the silver screen in the cinema that comes up before you see the movie, that's called the silver screen in movies. So Captain Jack Sparrow is the most famous. And he is a captain. Now, a captain formally is a military rank. It's like a person who is a high rank in the military. It could be Army, could be Navy, could be Air Force. But you also talk about pirates as being captains, and it's just basically the person who is in charge of a ship or in charge of an airplane. So like when you fly on a plane, you will hear somebody come on and say, "Good morning, everybody. This is your captain speaking. We hope you have a safe flight." Yeah, so that's a captain. So an example here, the captain is telling all workers to be at their places for the boat launch.
Pirate 这个名词呢，指的就是海盗。那加勒比海盗这个指的就是《神鬼奇航》这部电影。那里面的 Captain Jack Sparrow 杰克船长可说是无人不知、无人不晓。那 Johnny Depp 就是这个角色的演员。
Yes.
那在这边呢，我们还看到了今天的 Language in Focus， 我们来看一下是什么咯。今天的 Language in Focus 我们要讲到的是 likely 的用法。那首先呢 likely 当作形容词哦，那表示是可能会发生的或是可能属实的。常见的句型有第一种 It's likely to 后面加一个原形动词，或是第二种 It is likely that 后面加上主词以及一个动词，那表示呢 that 所带领的事件是可能发生或是可能为真。那再来呢第三个 likely 还可以跟 very、more、less、most、least 或是 not 等等的这些副词来运用，然后来表达可能性的高或低。So for example, it's very likely that Lin will quit the job. 这个林啊，他会 辞职是一件非常有可能的事情。那第4个呢，如果要做一个否定的话，你当然可以用 not likely 或是一个字 unlikely 也可以哦。
So we talked about Captain Jack Sparrow. Captain Jack Sparrow. However, there's one very real pirate from the history books that has an equally interesting tale to tell.
Wow, who's this interesting pirate?
Oh, I'm going to tell you, but not yet. This story begins in Bristol, England in 1702.
Wow.
So more than 300 years ago.
故事开始于1702年的英格兰 Bristol 这个地方。
Bristol, yeah. So Bristol is a city that is still famous for being a port city. A man named Edward Teach has just set sail from Bristol's port aboard a Royal Navy ship. Edward Teach. This is his real name. Nobody really knows him by this name. Some people might if they're into history, but they wouldn't know him by this name usually. We'll find out his nickname later. So Edward Teach, and he is leaving Bristol's port aboard a Royal Navy ship. So a port is a place where ships can find shelter from a storm. You could also think of it as towns or cities that have ports. Usually they're next to the ocean and they have places for a lot of ships to dock and stay while they're not on the sea. So if they're leaving port, it means they're about to go on an ocean journey. So Bristol is a port city, still is today. So for another example, we took the ship into port just before the storm hit. So we will say like go into port, leave port, go out of port. You don't say the port usually. So he's leaving on a ship with the Royal Navy. The Royal Navy, just because it's the United Kingdom, it's under the Queen and King. But the Navy is the part of a country's military that fights at sea. So they have the ships, they have submarines. And today they have airplanes that like fly off of ships, stuff like that. So those are all part of the Navy. They fight on the sea. So an example, Charlie joined the US Navy and is currently training on a big ship in the Atlantic.
好，我们这边先整理一下哦。首先看到的 port 这个名词是港或是港口，那还看到一个字是 navy， 指的就是海军咯。那这个 set sail 这个片语动词呢，它指的是起航。所以 Edward Teach 他上了英国皇家海军的船，然后呢从 Bristol 这个港口出发，然后开始航行。
So what ship is he on? Queen Anne's War has begun, and Teach is desperate for money. So there's a war happening. A war has just started between England and some other country. I can't remember what Queen Anne's War was between. So he's desperate for money. He's probably poor. He's like, I need to eat, he's desperate. It means you badly need or want something.
Desperate 这个形容词呢，代表急需要的或是极度向往的。那非常需要、非常向往什么？你可以说 desperate for something。好，可以用到这个介系词 for F-O-R。所以呢，我们可以说像这样的例句 ：The refugees are desperate for food and help， 代表难民们急需食物和帮助。那当时啊，安妮女王战争刚刚爆发 ，Teach 他急需用钱。
So he's on board a Royal Navy ship during Queen Anne's War. He's desperate for money. During the war, Teach experiences success as a sailor, but when the fighting finishes, he's out of work. So it means like, oh, look, war's over. We don't need soldiers anymore. You don't have a job. You're out of work. You don't have a job. You don't have anything to do.
所以 out of work 指的是失业，那也可以用一个形容词来说，就是 jobless， J-O-B-L-E-S-S。所以战争时期啊 ，Teach 他是一位成功的水手，可是战争结束之后 ，he was out of work.
Yeah. So what does he do? Teach settles in the Bahamas, where he meets pirate Benjamin Hornigold in 1716. So the Bahamas, they're this island group that's kind of close to the U.S. And he meets a pirate there. Ooh.
Oh, so he wasn't a pirate before.
No, he was a soldier in the Navy.
He was a sailor,
Yeah.
and then he met this guy. OK， 所以我们说到 Teach 在巴哈马定居下来，然后认识了 Benjamin Hornigold 这一位海盗。
Right. Hornigold agrees to employ Teach and places him in charge of a captured ship. So he employs him, he gives him a job, and he says, here, I got this ship that I captured, and I want you to be in charge of it. I want you to lead it. I want you to control it. I want you to be the captain of it. And it's a captured ship. So to capture something means to get control of something, especially by using force. So when you capture a ship, maybe you will have a bunch of pirates go on board the ship. They will make everybody else surrender, or they'll kill them, and then they will take the ship for themselves. You can also talk about this with like people. When you capture somebody, it's like kidnapping, or maybe, you know, if somebody's a criminal and they're running from the police want to capture them so they can take them to jail. So to capture just means to get control of something by force. So, an example, the pirates captured the town and forced everyone there to leave.
OK， 那我们刚刚看到的 in charge of something， 那就是负责管理某个地方或是某个公司。那还有一个动词 capture， 哈，它是夺取、占领。那在文中呢，它是用过去分词做形容词的用法，那代表就是被夺取的或是被占领的。那这个海盗啊，给了 Teach 一份工作，要他管理被占领的船只。
Right.
So he got a job.
He did. A job. It's not a legal job, but he's making money. So Hornigold retires a year later, leaving Teach to make his own decisions. So he's like, well, I gave you a boat. Bye. You know, he retires.
对，他就 retire， 那这个就是退隐退休，所以那是在1年之后。A year later， 他就这样退休了。那 Teach 他就必须自行做出一些重要的决定。
Yeah, and it's interesting that Hornigold was able to just retire from being a pirate, because a lot of pirates in those days and now would retire when they died, when they got killed.
Right.
Because it's a very violent job. It's a criminal job. You're fighting to capture things. So yeah, it's, you know, he retires, and then Teach has his own ship and he gets to make his own decisions. One of Teach's first moves is to attack and capture a large French slave ship, La Concorde. So it's a slave ship. Let's learn what slave means. So a slave is actually a person. It's a kind of person. It's somebody who is owned by another person, either under the law or maybe not under the law, and they're forced to work for that person without pay. So, like, let's say, you know, the slave trade that happened, you know, throughout the last few hundred years and only really ended in the 19th century was a lot of African people who were captured by white people or Europeans or Americans, and they were brought to other places and forced to work for those people. So when we're talking about slave ships, we're talking about ships that would bring slaves that were captured from Africa and take them to the places where they were forced to work. So it's not a good thing to be a slave, it's not a good thing to have a slave ship, but this is the kind of ship that Edward Teach captured. So for another example, this farm used to be worked by slaves, but now all of its workers are paid fairly.
Slave 这个名词指的就是奴隶啦。那 Teach 的第一步就是要攻击并且夺取一艘大型的 French ship, right?
Oh, yeah.
法国的船只不过是一个 slave ship. 奴隶船只.
And usually slave ships were very, very big because they were carrying a lot of people. They were carrying them very close together, but they were carrying a lot of people. So he had this ship called the La Concorde, the Conquered. So he renamed it. Teach renames the ship Queen Anne's Revenge and fits it with around 30 cannons at a crew of 300. So yeah, you can tell how big it is because he's got 300 men working the ship with 30 cannons. And he names it Queen Anne's Revenge. Remember, he fought in Queen Anne's War. Now she's getting her revenge. Revenge is when you do something to hurt someone because that person did something to hurt you. So like if Elsie hit me in the face and I wanted to get revenge, I would probably hit her in the face too. Yeah, you know, that sort of thing. Or somebody, you know, emotionally hurts you and you want to do something to hurt them back. That's revenge. So what did he do with the Queen Anne's Revenge? He fitted it with 30 cannons. Now a cannon, if you know what it is, that's pretty amazing. It's a large gun. It's a gun you can't hold. It's a gun that is on wheels and it shoots balls that are about this big or maybe bigger, and they're meant to do a lot of damage, and they used to be a really common weapon in the military. So he had 30 of these, and he had 300 crew. The crew is the people who work on a ship, except the officers and the captain. So it's basically the people who operate the ship. You also use the word crew for people who work on airplanes or trains. So, you will talk about the cabin crew on an airplane, the people who are serving you, making sure you stay safe, that kind of thing. So an example sentence, please listen to the airplane cabin crew when they are telling you about safety rules.
好，那一样整理一下，我们说到的 revenge 在这边当名词用哦，代表就是复仇。所以 teach 将这艘船重新取名为安妮女王复仇号，那装上30个加农炮和300名船组员。那我们用到的 crew 这个名词呢，它指的是全体的船员、全体的组员、全体的机组人员哦。
So we already know that this guy has been a very successful pirate so far. Like he got one ship from his mentor and then he captured another really, really big ship. It's around this time that he gains the name Blackbeard.
Oh, so that's his nickname,
Yes.
Blackbeard.
If you have heard of Blackbeard, the famous pirate, this is him, Edward Teach.
就是大约在这个时候，他有了黑胡子 Blackbeard 这个称号。
So do people here know about Blackbeard?
I think some.
Yeah, like
some
you
do.
think of when you think of pirates from the old days, you will think of a hairy, scary man, right? It's usually it's somebody who looks like Blackbeard.
Yep.
Yeah. So we are just getting started with the story of the fearsome Blackbeard the pirate. So we're going to talk more about him tomorrow. How did his piracy career go? How did it end? We'll find out tomorrow. So right now we're doing our For You chat question. So of course we want to know, what do you know about pirates?
What do I know about pirates? I know pirates are mean and they rob.
I mean, that's kind of their whole thing, isn't it?
And they probably have a dangerous life.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have people think of them as a romantic life. It's be on the high seas, no rules, and you have a crew and you drink every day and sing songs and stuff like that. It's actually a lot more about fighting and hurting people killing and robbing and taking entire things and destroying things. That's what pirates would do.
Right.
And pirates still exist today. Mostly they will capture cargo ships that are carrying a lot of goods, and then they will redirect them to the country where they can sell those goods on a black market, something like that. So pirates, they're pretty violent in real life, even though in the movies it looks really cool. Yeah. So we're going to find out how Blackbeard's piracy, that's pirate as a noun for doing the pirates. How did his career end? We'll find out tomorrow. So we'll see you then. Bye.
Vocabulary Review. Captain. The captain ordered the sailors to sail the ship to safety because a big storm was coming. Port. The little fishing boat left the port early in the morning to catch fish. Navy. Joan's brother serves in the Navy and he travels on a big ship often. Capture. The army easily captured the city after the enemy king gave up and let them in. Slave. Hattie was forced to be a slave on a farm where she worked hard without pay or rest. Crew. The crew on the flight were really polite, so I had a great time flying with them.
智慧小补帖。
Pirate. Desperate. Retire. Revenge. Cannon.